Good morning. We're doing it live. We're doing it live. We're doing it live. So today's topic is that Tucker Carlson's race mixing, anti-racist action speech was really terrible. He gave a speech at TPUSA. Jimmy Dore thinks it's good. I think it's horrible. And I'm going to tell you why. So I like Jimmy Dore. I like Tucker Carlson. Okay, let's just listen to what Tucker Carlson says here and Jimmy Dore.
50 years of this crap. All these fake.
Hold on a second.
What you're doing is trying to divide the country. And I've lived through 50 years of this crap. All these fake race wars that they're always promoting. Oh, go hate each other while we loot the treasury. That's exactly what's going on. And most people are totally sick of that. So, yes, there is a possibility for a huge coalition of decent people once they free their minds from the traps set for them by others and realize, wait a second, we all want to make this country better.
Okay, this sounds to me like Peter Thiel, J.D. Vance, Kalergi Plan. We're going to have this big coalition with Muslims and homosexuals and Jews and Hindus and you know what I mean? Like, it's just more of the same. And this is the philosophy that destroyed America and Europe. So it looks to me like Tucker's whole wake up, his whole enlightenment is just a organization of the same exact ideologies that brought America into the toilet and brought Europe into the toilet. And let's not forget that his father, Dick Carlson, ran the Voice of America, which promoted all this garbage to Germans, told them that they did the Holocaust and that they killed all the Jews and that they need a race mix. And there was all this. I remember years ago when the Black Lives Matter thing happened, long time ago. It must have been 10, 15 years ago or something. I don't remember. It was a long time ago, where they had BLM in Germany. You see, this is all the continuation of this Tucker Carlson, Dick Carlson, CIA, Voice of America program to destroy Europe through race mixing. It's called the Kalergi Plan. And Alex Jones basically covers up the Kalergi Plan. I don't want to go into him too much right now, but the thing is, it's a failed ideology, and it's not the original American ideology. So why are people who are calling themselves conservatives? You're supposed to be conservating what? I don't know. Why are they just trying to recreate this this ideology that was really invented by foreigners like Kalergi, foreigners like the Rothschilds, foreigners like people that would come over here in waves that were hostile to our way of life since the beginning and tell us what America means. So let's listen to what these guys have to say, because they're very popular.
So we covered the AmFest that TPUSA, Charlie Kirk's organization, had their AmFest. It was more like a wrestling show because Erica Kirk put it together instead of Charlie. But Tucker gave a speech there. We've already covered parts of it where he called out Ben Shapiro, but there were some much better parts to that speech. It was a great speech. And here he is.
It was a horrible speech. I think it was his worst
trying
speech.
Trying to bring people together. Sounding a little like Jimmy Dore, trying to bring people together. Let's watch.
Most people agree with that. Most Americans have more in common with each other than they disagree on.
More.
And almost everybody.
Who says that?
Left-wingers. Social Democrats.
Agrees on that. And almost everybody is willing to tolerate a good faith argument about how to get there.
Get where?
Except a few. And they're the ones running around calling everyone an anti-Semite. But everyone else is like, yeah, of course, that should be the debate. And they'll vote for you. They want that because they know they haven't.
Want what? Want what? A good faith debate? I'd like that. That's for sure. But I don't know where are you going with this? An alliance with? We're gonna have this. We're gonna have the same thing we have now. Muslims, Hindus, Asians, all mixed together under what? Palantir?
Had that.
A Palantir AI prison system. That's what they're constructing. They want to mix all the races together inside of a big prison run by artificial intelligence, run by Jews and homosexuals that rule over us through artificial intelligence and drone warfare, so that if you get out of line, not only can they erase all of your means of survival, but then they can send drones to kill you. because yeah, that's what they're doing.
That's the fact. And what you're watching now.
And Alex Jones and Tucker Carlson are agents of this Palantir group. It's Jews, homosexuals, that want to rule over the entire planet with an AI, artificial intelligence, drone system. So it's a super controlled prison system, and race mixing is a key ingredient. Race mixing Muslims with Christians, with Jews, with Hindus, with atheists, with homosexuals, and everybody's equal in this new system. You're all equally prisoners. That's the Tucker Carlson plan.
Now, attacking millions of Americans because they're Muslims?
Okay, stop right there. Millions of Americans, what my definition of American, there's no such thing as, okay, dude. Tucker Carlson that says that there's millions of Americans who are Muslims. That's not true. That's not true. There are not millions of Americans who are Muslims. There are millions of U.S. persons who are Muslims. And do you know the difference? Because I do. There's a big difference between an American and a U.S. person or a U.S. citizen. A U.S. citizen is not necessarily an American, right? All these Somalians in Minnesota, they're U.S. persons. Means they're citizens, or they have some kind of legal authority to be within the territory of the U.S., granted them by Washington, D.C., the U.S. government. That's not the same as being an American. So no, Tucker, there are not millions of Americans that are Muslim. And if you want to go back to the original definition of what an American is, it's 1790. This is the definition. This is the original definition of what an American is. It says the Naturalization Act of 1790 was the first U.S. law establishing uniform rules for citizenship, limiting naturalization to free white persons of good character who resided in the U.S. for 2 years. Okay, so a free white person of good character. Does that sound like millions of Muslims to you? Does that sound like millions of Muslims to you? Now, where did George Washington and the group that established this first Naturalization Act, where did they get this idea of free white person of good character? They got this from their Masonic tradition, right? This is the basic Masonic idea of like who's welcome in the lodge, right? So this was their definition for who's an American. Now, Freemasonry started out as a Christian organization based on the Book of John, which says the Word of God is light. But it devolved, in my opinion, into because it started out as a philosophical order of Christians. And then what happened was it became something where it's a group where you can make money, right? So now I'm just giving an example. So now people like Donald Trump want to be involved, and now people like JD Vance want to be in it, and people like Vivek Ramaswamy want to be in it, right? Because they want to make money. See, that's kind of what happened to Freemasonry. Same thing happened to the United States of America. Well, you have to. I mean, of course, there's always a dimension of needing to make money, because you can't have a civilization without producing things for survival, right? You need income, you need products. But ultimately, people that just wanted to make money became the thing. Like people that had a lot of money, right? People that had a lot of money, people that wanted to make money. So then it became just like a crime group that was like, it lost the philosophy in favor of criminal gangs. And so that's why you don't see Masonic orders speaking out, or they don't really speak out. I mean, they're all very secretive, but you don't see the people who are involved in Freemasonry speaking out against crime, speaking out against the perversion, like I do on my show. They don't do that. What do? I don't know. We'll have to find someone that find out what they do. They turned America into a dark age cult, is what they did. America is a dark age, is ruled by a dark age philosophy, and so is Europe. And that was those are all the areas that were ruled by Freemasonry. They became dark age toilets. And like I said, it started with a Christian order and it devolved into something else. So, but the point is, because in Freemasonry, like, well, you could have someone who says that they're Muslim, they could become a Freemason. Well, they can become a Freemason, and a Freemason is supposed to be someone who follows the light of God, which is defined in John 1 as Jesus Christ from the beginning, the Alpha Omega from the beginning, which goes back to Egypt, as I've told you. So, yeah, they could be a Muslim, but now they're going to convert to actually this other religion. And yes, they could have been from a Jewish background, but now they're converting to this new religion. And though they could have been from a Catholic background, and now they're converting to this new religion. Because Freemasonry, in its purest form, is a religious philosophy. And it devolved into something else. It got taken over by crime gangs. Just like America. Just like America. It's very similar to what happened to America. So saying you can import people from North Africa or East Africa, and that they're going to be Americans and they're Muslim. You saying that you can import Somalis into America and that they're Muslims now, and we're in this thing with Somalians. That's stupid. It's a stupid ideology. It's a failed ideology, but it's the ideology of the international Jewish, homosexual, artificial intelligence, Palantir, JD Vance, Donald Trump. Look, Donald Trump's allied with Mecca. The state of Israel is allied with Mecca. Mecca. Who's allied with Mecca? Donald Trump. Who's allied with Mecca? The state of Israel. They're allied with the Arabs. This was all put together by the International Jewish World Jewry. So, but see, that's one of the big things, dude. When you get these people and they're like, because a lot of Republicans are stupid. They're really stupid people. They're really low IQ. They're very they're like controlled through mind control. And so because the Jews are killing Palestinians and those Palestinians are Muslims, then that means that the Jews are fighting the Muslims. That's not what that means. That means they're fighting the Palestinians, and they'll kill the Christians too. See, when the Jews are killing Palestinians, they don't care if they're Muslims or they're Christians. It's not a religious war. For them, they're saying, we're going to kill you to take this land. At the same time, the Jews are allied with Al-Qaeda in Syria. At the same time, the Jews are allied with Mecca, which is, so you see what I mean? You're like, but the Jews are fighting the Iranians and they're Muslims. Yeah, but they're fighting them because they're Iranians, not because they're Muslims. They don't care if they're Muslims. See, the people that don't want to be ruled by Muslims are people like me, not Jews. Jews don't care if Muslims come in here. They don't care. That's why Donald Trump's going after the Somalians. Actually, Donald Trump's not a good advice. Donald Trump may be more of like a white supremacist. But he's a Jew. Donald Trump is a Jew. But the thing about Donald Trump, he's also illiterate. So there's no way for him to know what the Bible says because he can't read. So he just kind of goes with what people are telling him. And when the Christians act stupid, which all these Zionist Christians are mentally ill, and he sees them acting mentally ill, he's like, yeah, I don't want to be in that. I want to be with these Jews because they're vicious and they want to make money and they want to kill their enemies. So I support that. See, that's the kind of thinking of Donald Trump. Now, the problem with that thinking is that applies to all of us Americans. That applies to all of the people in Europe. That applies to Australia. And Donald Trump doesn't understand that. See, Donald Trump doesn't understand that these Jews that he loves want to destroy Australia and take it over and rule over it, right? And they're going to, these other people are weak. We have to dominate them. We have to kill them off, and we'll work with the Muslims to get. See, this is where it gets into this whole thing. The Jews will work with the Muslims to kill off the people of Australia. Like when you look at this thing that happened in Sydney, and my Facebook account got completely went through. I'm blocked from Facebook right now. I was critiquing that Arsen Ostrovsky guy over the Sydney attack, and I was openly just going, there was an IDF, a Mossad agent with a full uniform dress in his profile pic, and I critiqued him. I go, "You're a Jew, and you're lying about what happened in Sydney." And he was making up lies about the Ostrovsky guy, big lies, like obvious ones. It was stupid, right? And so after I hit that guy, the Israeli government went through my Facebook, deleted a bunch of my posts about Arsen Ostrovsky, and also about the remember that kid that asked the question of Charlie Kirk that was coordinated with the hit in the neck. So that guy is Jewish, and his father is Jewish, and they're tied to Hollywood and the whole Jewish mafia. That it was coordinated. So I can't remember that guy's name. He was a Jewish guy that Barry Weiss had him on the show on CBS to ask Erica Quirk the stage questions. Right. See, these are the people that killed Charlie Kirk. These are the people that Donald Trump is allied with. These are the people that Alex Jones is allied with. These are the people that Tucker Carlson is supposedly on the outs with, but he still shows up at TPUSA. Why? Because he's promoting let's all race mix. This is the agenda of the Jewish homosexual AI prison planet that Alex Jones is enforcing on the world with Tucker Carlson. But my point is, they went through and scrubbed all my stuff, and so what I'm saying is, we Americans do not have a government. We don't have a government. So I'll just insert this here. I want a government, and so I want a political faction, which is called the American government. It's not based. And so we want to get rid of the Republican Party and the Democrat Party and all the private groups behind them, and use a fascist tactic to bring in a utopian system. Because fascism is a tactic, not a philosophy. But you can have a political philosophy that benefits Americans, which we don't have. But we're going to have to use fascist tactics. We're going to have to use fascist tactics, and fascist tactics don't have to be applied to like when the Antifa people think of fascism, they think it's about genociding brown people, because that's what they see happening to the Palestinians and all this other stuff. And that's what the Jews told them that Hitler was doing, which isn't true. Hitler was going after the bankers. Mussolini was going after the organized crime gangs. And that's what fascism really is. It's the government taking back control of the power of the state to crush criminal groups, to crush organized crime, to crush drug traffickers, to crush these banking cartels that are overpowering the government. So that's a fascist tactic that I would agree with, because it leads to justice. It leads to real justice. Anyway, I'm going off here. Let's listen to this stupid Tucker Carlson stuff saying that millions of Americans are Muslim. They're not. Those are called U.S. persons. They're not part of anything that we are, and we don't need to be in alliance with them. My idea is that we break up the U.S. and we go back to our native form of government, a native form of government. We need law and order, and we need to impose that on our people. And we can't. So I don't want to have bad relations with the other races, because I actually want to have good relations. We have to have good relations. Otherwise, it gets to bloody mess, right? But like, I'll give you an example. I'm not for policing black neighborhoods. When I see white people in black neighborhoods policing them, I think to myself, are you stupid? Why are you wasting your life policing black people? Number one, they're not your race. And they know that they're not your race. They don't want you there. They look at you as a foreigner because you are in their neighborhood. So just get out. You lost that territory. Just take the L, bro. You're white. You lost this territory to blacks. That's no longer your responsibility. Don't send police in there to police them. It's stupid, right? So the same thing with Muslims. Oh, Somalians run Minnesota now? Okay, well, forget it. You lost that territory. What territories do you control? See, those are the areas that you need to focus on. Oh, let's send white people to police black neighborhoods. No, that's stupid. What areas do you control now? What do you control? How's that doing? Are your people doing well? Probably not, because in America, white people no longer build cities. Anyway, let's go back to Tucker Carlson and Jimmy
It's
Dore.
disgusting. And I'm a Christian. I'm not a Muslim. I know there's a lot of effort to claim I'm a secret jihadi. I'm not. You should not attack people on those grounds. And you're seeing it from Republicans. What the hell are you doing?
Well, they're not. Okay, so here's the thing, Tucker. You're an Episcopalian, and that's cute. But the fact of the matter is, in Christianity, see, if you worship the light of God called Jesus Christ, and I take that back through to the beginning, before the beginning of time. So I don't start when I think of Jesus Christ, I don't think about 2,000 years ago in the Romans. I think about the beginning of creation. See, that's where Jesus Christ starts for me. And so there's nothing else to, there's no other ideology that supersedes that. And so when Muslims say that Jesus Christ is a Muslim prophet, that's stupid, because it's just not true. And when Jews say Jesus Christ was a wizard, a heretical, blasphemous wizard, that's stupid. It's not true. And when PBS and the Jesuits and the communists and the atheists say Jesus Christ was just a man who was deified, that's not true either. He wasn't a man that was deified. He is a symbol for God's word, which was told in a story. And so the story of Jesus Christ. But so there's no reason to be in an alliance with Muslims. There's no reason to be in an alliance with Jews. There's no reason to be in alliance with Hindus. The philosophy that created Christianity, that came out of Egypt and that came to the Israelites, and then from the Israelites, they pass it on to Judah, and they also pass it on to the Greeks. From Egypt. It came from Egypt. It's not like the Egyptians invented this. And when you look at Egypt, you say, well, Egypt is so pagan. You know, the Horus and Set and Ra and Atum and Amun, and oh, it's also pagan. Well, so is your religion pagan. So is your cube pagan. So is your a lot of Catholic traditions are pagan, and a lot of these Jewish traditions are pagan, with the humping of the wall and the swinging of the chicken. So what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter. See, all this stuff is irrelevant. It's the philosophy that matters. The philosophy is pure. The philosophy that the word of God is light is pure. It's just, now you can paganize that and symbolize that. See, it's almost like you can't really communicate something without a symbol. You can't communicate something without an image. So I'm not against images. I'm not against paganism in general, if it's communicating the original idea, which is God's word is light. But no, there's no reason to be in anything with Muslims, Hindus, Jews, any type of fake Christian, like Zionist Christian. The Pope. See, the Pope is not the Father, so he's wrong too. And so the only thing that's right is the philosophy. The philosophy is always right. The philosophy can never be changed because it comes from God. Just like the natural laws of the universe can never be changed because they come from God. You see, God is the theos. God is the theos, and the laws of nature are based on the logos. And we call that logos, we call that natural law. We also call it the truth that comes to our soul, which we call the light. See, those things are unchanging. Those things are pure. Those things were not inventions of man. They can only be described by people. But no, we don't need a Muslim telling us how to organize our civilization. We don't need a Jew telling us how to organize our civilization. And we don't need any other races telling us how to organize our civilization. However, those other races that also believe in what we believe, we can work in a coalition with them. And so fascism as a tactic, not as a philosophy, but as a tactic, is not inherently racist, in that, like, it's this whole thing that the Antifa thinks the Jews were like it's basically, Antifa is basically an instrument of Jews. The Jews invented this philosophy about how the Germans wanted to kill everyone, and they told them that, and they got low IQ, illiterate, drug addicts, anarchists, crazy people. They used them to then kill anyone who comes after the power group. See, the power group, the bankers, the dope dealers, the big money guys, they've got these crazy people called Antifa to kill you, and they hype them up with all kinds of weird propaganda. That's the problem.
What you're doing is trying to divide the country. And I've lived through 50 years of this crap. All these fake race wars that they're always promoting.
I am trying to divide the country. I am. I don't want to be in anything with, okay, Tucker, I don't want to be anything with Jews who are rabbinical Judaism. That's what I'm talking about. There's Jewish people I know and like personally, but I'm talking about rabbinical Judaism. I'm the Jewish mafia. So we got ADL, all the Zionist groups, the Epstein group, the the American Jewish Committee and the World Jewish Congress and B'nai B'rith, like all that stuff, that's completely alien to me. That's completely foreign to me. So nothing with that. They can't be included. They have to be excluded. I want an excluded, closed, excluded society. So nobody that's involved in rabbinical Judaism or the Jewish mafia, they're all going to be excluded. No Muslims. Now, there's another thing about your conscience, and this goes back to a Masonic idea, which is that, see, let's say you're born an Englishman, you're white, you're an Anglo-Saxon Englishman, and you read something in the Quran and you like that, and so you say, well, I feel like this feels good to me. See, that's different than if you're a foreigner and you're going to come over as a foreigner and impose a religion on you. So within our society, our Anglo-Saxon utopian society, we do allow for people to think according to their conscience. But we must have an orthodox religious system that says yes and no. This is our system. This is how we organize society. You're free to read any other books you want. You're free to think anything you want. But when it comes to the perpetuation of our society and our culture, we have some rigid lines that don't get crossed, right? No Talmud. There's no Talmudic bullshit. There's no Quran ideology running our thing. There's no other alien ideas that are Hindu or anything. See, it's just our ideology from our race. And it doesn't even come, it passed through the Bible. And I love the Bible, but the Bible's not perfect, and it's not the Word of God. The Word of God is the light. It's the light that comes from God. So there's some stuff that needs to be sorted out with that philosophically, too, so that people don't get confused. That's part of the reason why America and Europe failed, is because people couldn't differentiate between the Word of God, which is the light, and the words in the book, which people who are illiterate and have low IQ kept calling the Word of God. Anyway, we don't want to get into that right now. It's too complicated.
Voting? Oh, go hate each other while we loot the treasury. That's exactly what's going on. And most people are totally sick of that.
Well, that might be what's going on, but who are the people doing the looting? It's the Jewish mafia and these people connected with all these crime gangs that you are actually working for also. And they want everybody. See, they want so the people that run the US government want Christians in a government with Muslims, with Hindus, with homosexuals, with atheists, with different types of Christianity. They want all these different races and all these different religions together. So when Tucker Carlson says, "How dare you try to divide us?" Who? No, they want to use each other. They want to use all those groups that are now in the prison yard. Yes, but if one group says we don't want any of this and we want to separate out completely, see, that's what they don't want. That's what I'm pushing. We don't want to be part of this whole system you've created. We have our own ideology, and it's not what you're pushing. See, we have our own ideology. It's not what the U.S. government is pushing. Now, the U.S. government is composed of private groups. See, we don't want a government composed of all these private groups connected to the mafia. We want a government that the people that work there literally serve the government. Like the government worker, the politician literally works for the state, not a private group. See, the problem with America is that the people in the government work for a private group, which only represents its profiteers. See, we want a person that works in the government, that works for the state. They don't have a union. They don't work for a union. They don't work for a private union. They don't work for a private military company. They don't work for a private drug company. They don't work for a private banking corporation. They work for the state, and that the power resides in the state, not in the private group. Why? Because we as individuals want a government that enforces certain laws, and that's going to persist through time, not working for all these other private groups that can manipulate the state with money. We don't want that. We don't want that.
So, yes, there is a possibility for a huge coalition of decent people once they free their minds from the traps set for them by others and realize, wait a second, we all want to make this country better.
This is J.D. Vance, Peter Thiel, homosexual Jewish mafia propaganda. Remember, Peter Thiel and Barry Weiss are friends. Peter Thiel and CBS are allies. They're working together. J.D. Vance, Peter Thiel, Barry Weiss. This is all one big thing. And what they do is that they do use this thing where they get you to fight each other, but it's not so that you'll get out of it. In other words, let me give you an example. Nothing's going to come of this whole thing with Donald Trump attacking Somalians. Nothing's going to come of it. Zero. What you have to do with the thing with the Somalians is say, we need to dissolve this system of government because it doesn't work. Now, what am I saying to go towards? Well, the original thing here was that America was founded for white people. Now, you had other races living here, right? You had the Indians, you had African Americans that were brought over by slaves, by the Jewish and Jesuit mafias that were running the sugar business, and also other stuff into the Louisiana territory with the cotton and the tobacco and all this. But see, they're the ones that set up, as a private group, set up a government, and they're the same group. They want everybody under their little prison system. So I'm saying no. Just like the British Empire said to the Catholic Church, no. See, the Catholic Church was universal in that they wanted to be over all the different races in the world. And the British Empire said no. And what happened when the British Empire said no? Well, they became the British Empire. When the British said no, they became the British Empire. And then they started taking all this territory from the Universalists, the race mixers over in Rome.
And the 15% or 30% who don't. Okay.
The difference in Rome is they wanted you to all race mix under their philosophy, but it's not different because now they all want you to race mix under this new philosophy. See, the new philosophy, it just isn't Christian. It's a new philosophy. It's rooted in basically sodomy and Judaism. So no.
Okay. Good luck in Maryland or wherever you wind up. But the rest of us would like to fix it.
Fix what?
Now, I've been saying for a while that when the banks crashed our economy after deregulating themselves, they crashed our economy in 2008, and the bankers didn't miss their bonus checks, but Barack Obama did kick 5.1 million families out of their homes. Now,
right. That's why the system doesn't work. Okay. But so what you're saying is to keep doing that same thing again, and we'll make it work this time. You're not going to make it work this time. See, what doesn't work is interracial, interreligious super governments. That doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It's stupid and it doesn't work. And those of us who are, so there's no upside. Let me put it this way. There's no upside. There's no gain. There's no interest in white people or people from Europe, European races, allying with Muslims or Asians like Chinese and people from East Asia. There's no reason to do that. Those people, it's not that those other people are bad. There's just no reason to do it. See, Chinese people have a government. So they have a government in China, which is a big, powerful government. And then they also now have territory in the United States. They're taking over our farms. They're buying up real estate. So now they have a government there, and they have our government working for them. Same thing in Germany. So the German government works for the Jews, and the German government works for these other people and the Americans, and they just do whatever they're told. Like, they don't have a government. The last person that tried to establish a government in Germany for the Germans was Adolf Hitler, and we bombed him. And then Alex Jones brags about how we bombed him, and Tucker Carlson says how great that was that we killed the Germans. And then his father goes in and sets up some big brainwashing campaign to tell the Germans how bad they were and how good it is that they're now under U.S. control.
You go to, so that's when the Occupy Wall Street started and the Tea Party started. And they were both organizing around hatred for Wall Street and the billionaire class who were screwing everybody. So what did the establishment do? They figured out we got to divide these people. We can't let them come together. And that's when identity politics really took off. And you wanted
True. However, but one thing that this is one thing I don't think Jimmy Dore understands, or maybe doesn't care because he's kind of a liberal, is that this whole thing about putting homosexuals and transsexuals in charge of the government has been a plan since the whole time. The whole time. Look, I know it's weird to think about this, but it's there for some reason, and I don't know exactly why, other than there's some kind of weird kind of like, it's almost like some kind of if you think of like, let me just put this idea in your mind about maybe like, if you think of like a very weird, sinister type of entity, organization, right? And it's like, and it's something that's been kind of going through time as like a high-tech electronic society, right? And for some reason, there's all these other factors involved in what they're doing. So you have like a high-tech electronic society. That's what we're heading into now, right? There's no God. They think that a computer, because it can spit out facts and figures, that makes it intelligent. Artificial intelligence. There's no such thing as artificial intelligence. A computer is not sentient. See, I'm sentient, and you're sentient. Okay, a computer is not sentient. It takes facts and recalculates them and then gives you the answer. See, that's not the intellect of the universe, which is called theos. There's no theos in there. There's no theos. There's no reasoning of theos. It's just it's a recitation of facts. So anyway, for some reason, this group, this high-tech group that's taking over the planet Earth and wants to imprison us all, is for some reason heavily involved in sexual perversion and drugs. And so I think what Jimmy Dore doesn't understand is this idea to turn the world into basically like a prison planet, which is what Alex Jones used to have his website called. But now he works for these people. He works for Peter Thiel and JD Vance and CBS and Barry Weiss. But this idea that there's a prison planet, a high-tech prison run by sexual deviants that want to exterminate the population of the earth. Well, this is why they put homosexuals and in charge of the schools and the children and the kids shows and the Disneyland and also in corporations, and put them in charge of the military, the Pentagon, and put them in charge of. See, that's not going away. Getting Peter Thiel in there, that's not going away. See, Donald Trump kind of ran on that, was stupid, because Donald Trump is just like a regular. Well, I don't know what Donald Trump. He's like, well, that's dumb. Okay, so then he gets rid of it for a couple of years, but then it's going to come back. See, because this isn't going away. Donald Trump's not making it go away. Alex Jones isn't making it go away. Now they're just going to forward it into the future. They punted it into the future a few years, so now it's going to come back again. See, that you didn't solve the problem, and the whole time for the last, I would say, for the last 100+ years, the program has been to do race mixing and perversion and drugs on society, to dumb it down, to pervert it, to criminal, to make everything into like a criminal toilet run by these degenerates, and the idea is to put sexual perverts in charge of all of the important parts of the society, so that it's like a priest class the key point is a pre-class of sexual perversion run by high tech, and that's why there's drones, right? That's why you're killing with drones, and then it's all run by perverts. Just like when the Ukraine war started, remember they had that one dude who was like, I don't know, his name was like, I don't know, he like literally was a trans person. He was over there in Ukraine. He's reporting from Ukraine, and we're all rah, rah, rah. Get out your rainbow flags for Ukraine, right? This is the group. This is the group. This is the group Tucker Carlson works for. And it's not going away. See, Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth, they're like, yeah, that's dumb. We're going back to brass tacks. Yeah, that's going to last a couple of years, and then you're going to be gone, and they're going to go right back to where they were. Right? It's not going away. So anyway,
You want to identify by your skin color instead of the character, the content of your character, which is the opposite of what Martin Luther King said.
okay, but who cares what Martin Luther King said? Because who says I'm supposed to listen to Martin Luther King? My race comes from Europe, and our religion comes from Athens and Egypt and the Bible and Christianity. So it has nothing to do with Martin Luther King. And I don't hate people because of their race, but this is not an ideology that's going to win. It's what brought down the U.S. and it's what brought down Europe, and it's what brought down the British Empire. It's like it's brought everything down. It's why the rise of China, the rise of India. It's why you have Somalians running crime schemes over it, and nobody can do anything about it. It's why you lost New York, and you're like, but Martin Luther King said, no one gives a shit. That was just a weapon to use against you from the beginning. It was a weapon against people in the South who are blocking this agenda from rolling forward that we're in now. The Republican agenda that we're in now of Peter Thiel and Tucker Carlson and an AI super state run by perverts and the Jewish mafia. Like this was always the plan, but white people were always a barrier to that. So what they did with Martin Luther King is they brought him into the South, where you had white folks living out there who didn't want to have anything to do with this race mixing stuff, and they brought him in, and then they would march black, like columns of black men through the town of a white town out in the middle of nowhere, and they brought all the cameras in, so that when the white people came out and said, "Hey, fuck you, get out of here, we didn't ask for this," and have them using the N-word and all this stuff. And then they videotape the white people responding to this provocation and go, look how evil this is. We just got to do something about these horror. We can't have this. And this whole thing with Martin Luther King was just a psyop. It was a psyop from the beginning to get to where we are now, to where the white race was destroyed. And it's all run by homosexuals and Jews with an AI super state where we're all in a big giant prison. And there's no more Christianity. Everything's run by the Talmud, and we have to be in alliance with Muslims and Mecca and Al Qaeda, and like all this came out of that, dude. So no, Jimmy Dore, that was dumb. That was dumb.
You want to identify by your sexuality. You want to identify with your sex, ethnicity, every other thing except.
Okay, so now notice how you use the word ethnicity. This is called ethnos in the Bible, and you know who hates the ethnos, the goyim? Who hates the goyim, right? Don't identify by your ethnicity, goyim. This is a trick, bro. See, the power and the beauty of life is that you have different races and cultures. And as a European, just like as a European, this has always been our tradition in Europe. You've got the Italians, you've got the Portuguese and the Spanish, and you've got the Irish, and the Irish are different than the Celt. The Irish are different than the Scottish, right? You've got the Scottish, and you've got the English, right? And see, these are different races, and these are different cultures, and we identify with these things. You see, and then you've got the Russians, and you've got the Germans, and you've got these different races, and it's beautiful. You know, it's beautiful. And so to say, stop doing that. So you want to weaken that in favor of this big race mixing thing, the Kalergi Plan, so that the homosexual Jewish mafia with Barry Weiss and Larry Ellison and Peter Thiel and J.D. Vance can rule over you without any opposition. See, you derive that opposition to the system through your race. Through your race. And that goes for other races, right? You can't, but I'm just saying, our tradition in Europe, it's always been this way. It's always been this way, and we have a kindred sort of relations, right? Like my people, like I'm on my mother's side is English. On my father's side, it's Irish and French. Okay, but there's like this kindred thing, right? And the kindred thing between the French and the Germans and the English and the Irish and the Spanish, and it's fun to have, and the Greeks, right? And it's nice to have these. It's nice to have this type of society. So to say we're supposed to throw all that in the trash and for Tucker Carlson saying, "How dare you? You're just being mean to the Muslims," and this whole stuff about Martin Luther King, but that the Republicans have been pushing this whole time. It's all BS. It's all designed to destroy civilization. So what we should have is a federation. The idea behind the European Union that people thought. They thought, well, this is a European Union. This means that the Germans and the French and the Irish and the Spanish and the Italians, we're all going to work together. That's not what it meant. If that's what it was, it'd be great, but it was never meant to be that. It was meant to be the rise of this Jewish mafia, this Judeo-Sodomite mafia, in league with Islam and Mecca, to rule over us and destroy all of our cultures and civilizations. That's what it is, and that's what it was, and that's why you can't support it.
As an American with shared interests with each other. And so that's when they started to plant stories about white nationalists, and everything was racist and everything was sexist, and you got to worry about the Nazi next door. You remember all this, right? Well, I'm not making this up. This has been studied academically, and they've showed that the increase in the corporate media of all those terms of pushing racism and dividing the country exploded after Occupy Wall Street. And so that's them finding a way to divide us and conquer us.
No, who they're trying to conquer specifically is the white race. That's who they're trying to conquer. You got to understand something, that they're not worried about people from like these Latin American races, like the poor people that live in like the Latin American territories. They're not competing with this Jewish mafia. The black African Americans, they're not worried about them. They're not worried about them taking over and destroying the Jewish mafia. The people that they fear is what happened in World War II. Mussolini, Adolf Hitler, right? That's who they fear, because those men arrested the Rothschilds. Those men stopped the mafia. You got to understand something. I'm watching this guy on Rumble, Michael Francese, right? Former Columbia crime family boss guy. Or he was like one of the top guys, right? He's pushing the Jews are God's chosen people baloney. And he gets to keep all of his money that he made selling dope. And he's out here living in Corona del Mar, California, beautiful, super multi-million-dollar homes. And it's like, why there's no government cracking down on him. But there was under Mussolini. See, under Mussolini, there was a crackdown on the mafia. This is called the Fascist Party. See, Mussolini was a socialist, and then he realized that this wasn't working and that they weren't going after these people because they were funded by them. And so Mussolini, people like Hitler was a socialist, social democratic party. Hitler was a social democrat. Mussolini was a social democrat. Then they realized that the social democrats are being run by this mafia that's tied to the bankers, using them to overthrow all these governments. So they said, fuck, F that. We're going to crush these people. And they went after them. Now, the bankers were also using minority groups as weapons in the society. That's why there's some contention between the governments of the fascist governments and some minority groups. We'll get in Hitler's time. Did Hitler go after black Africans? No. This is why it's so stupid. But he did go after the Jehovah's Witnesses. Why? Because they were 100% backed by the Rothschilds, and it still is an instrument of Judaism. So you had the Jehovah's Witnesses, you had the Communist Party, you had homosexual groups, just like today. It's all the same. It's the same groups. It's and the Jesuits. Hitler went after the Jesuits, not strongly enough because they were able to organize a plot to kill him in 1944. But the real target of the fascist movement that came out of the Social Democrats when they realized that these people were sponsoring, that these people were literally sponsored by the international Jewish money mafia banking cartels, they went after them. And that's why they had to be crushed by US bombs and Antifa terrorists on the ground.
So we don't come together around shared interests. And thank God for Tucker bringing this message to the Turning Point people. Now you notice they're not cheering.
Well, it's a
Because
stupid
this
speech.
is not the room for that speech. Here is Blakely. I love Blakely. She says, I want to reserve a special holiday FU to every liberal and Democrat for letting Tucker Carlson be the one to call out Islamophobia. Good for you, Blakely.
No.
Good for you. Here is a
No, dude. Okay, so you don't realize, like, I've argued with a lot of Muslims on a Facebook group that I was part of. They hate Christians. They love Judaism because they use Judaism to Muslims when they argue theology. They use Judaism as as proof that Christ was a liar. When Muslims go around saying, "Oh, we love Jesus," this is all a fraud. It's all a fraud. So that's why I keep telling people that Christ is the light, and that this was in Egypt, it was very pagan in Egypt. But the philosophy behind the paganism that was in Egypt, or that exists in the Catholic Church, or whatever, and you think, oh, well, you're talking about the Protestants are right and the Christian Zionists have it right. No, they're illiterate. All these people missed the point. The Freemasons had it pretty good at one time, but now they're gone. They couldn't maintain their own philosophy. They got corrupted too. But that's why you have to understand that Christ is the light, and that when you worship Jesus Christ, you're not worshiping a man. It's told in the story of a man. See, in the Bible, when you see the word he or his, in Greek it's aftos, he or his. That's a reference to God, but it's a symbolic he or his. It's symbolically said he or his. See, when you say his word is the light, well, that's symbolically he. You're using language to describe something that is immaterial. There's no space, form, or energy. That's why Muslims are wrong. You cannot have an alliance with Muslims. You cannot have an alliance with Jews. Jews think Jesus was a man. Muslims think Jesus was a man. Communists think Jesus was just a man, and that it's all bullshit. That's not. It's not a man.
Jay Jones was the moderate, says you hate Democrats more than Republicans. Everybody knows this already. So that's exactly what they do. They did the same thing to me. When I was calling out the Democrats, people call, oh, you hate that, you love Republic, you're a Republican, you're a Trumper, you're that. That's the game they play. And she says this is probably why the party is ignoring you, being the Democrats. She goes, checks out. His handle is @liberalboomer. Okay. So super checks out. Here's what some people. Why does Tucker parrot Justin Trudeau from 2016?
Exactly.
This is now conservatism. Diversity is our strength. Tucker, blackface Trudeau, Carlson.
Yeah, so Tucker sucks.
So when Tucker says something unbelievably reasonable,
it's not reasonable. It's a failed ideology that needs to be put to bed. And the future needs to be based on exactly what I just told you, that the word of God is light. We're not going to be in something with Jews. We're not going to be in something with Muslims. We're not going to be in something with Christian Zionists, who are basically a threat for Judaism. We need to go our own way for our own people. So we have our own race. We have our kindred people of Europe, and we have our religion that came out of Egypt and Athens and Europe. Actually, Europe is, to be honest with you, I gotta do another video about this. The word Europe is the name of a Phoenician goddess. And where's Phoenicia? That's where Jesus was born. Okay, that's where Jesus. The story of Jesus. He's born in where? Europe. Jesus is born in Europe. Literally Europe. Europe is a Phoenician goddess. right? So in the story, because I told you, Jesus is not a man. He wasn't really born. It's a story, right? In my opinion, because I can read. I know how to read an allegory. Just like Noah's Ark isn't a boat, it's the sun going through the calendar. See, because I can read. And it's a symbol of God's word, which is not the sun, but it's like the sun. See, I can read. I can read. I can read. That's my crime. My crime is that I can read. And so now you could say, okay, so we're all going to read. We're all going to learn the story of Noah's Ark, or we're all going to learn the story of Jesus, or we're all going to learn the story of Horus and Set fighting an eternal struggle under the guidance of Thoth on the moon, which is called No, we don't need to know all that. You can know those things, but the only benefit to knowing everything I just told you is that you know that you have this thing called theos, and theos has an idea, and that this idea is the truth because there's nothing to contradict it. It's as natural. See, theos, I just used his, see, symbolically. Theos has a natural inclination. A natural inclination. That natural inclination of theos appears, which you're part of, that natural inclination of theos, which you are part of, appears as space and objects. That's its natural inclination, is to appear as spaces and objects called the universe. Okay? And has a natural inclination to the truth. Okay? And so that's the religion. What can we all agree on? So when we start off, we say, well, what can we all agree on? Well, we can all agree on spaces and objects called the universe. We can all agree that the universe is here. Let's start there. Okay, we can all agree the universe is here. Okay, the universe is here, and the universe is based on laws. We call those natural laws, and that's called the logos, right? You have biology and you have physics, but biology is one, and logos, the study of life, organic life, biology. Anyway, you have the different logias, the reasoning of the universe, right? And these are ideas, the ideas of theos appearing as the natural inclination of theos appearing as spaces and objects and living forms. So this is the natural inclination of theos. And so the word of theos, the logos of theos, is the source of the universe. And the word of theos is the source of the truth. So when you know right and wrong, you put your faith in the truth. See, now you're putting your faith in theos because it's the truth, right? That's the religion.
I'm just letting you know, this is the pushback. Yes. So then someone says, yes, because Muslims are being shot in the street across the world right during their holiday. Oh, wait. So he's referring to this false flag attack in in Australia. She says, the genocidal Israel regime doesn't need to wait for a holiday. They murder Muslims daily.
See, now that you're getting us sucked right back into this war between Muslims and Jews. I don't want to be in that war. That's not what we're doing, Jimmy. I don't want to get all contangled up in this thing about Muslims and Jews. It's stupid. Has nothing to do with what we're doing. That's what I'm saying. This is why Tucker's idea that we need to be in big alliance with Jews and Muslims and everybody else to say, no, we don't need that. We don't need it. This is why the Chinese are smart. They're like, go away. We're Chinese. We're doing our own thing. See, that's how Europeans used to be. We're the Europeans. We do our own thing. We used to fight with one another a lot throughout history. But ultimately, you have these kindred, the governments are like, hey, we want to take their stuff. But the people generally liked each other because we're all kindred people over there. So no, we don't need to get in. So Jimmy's making a big mistake. Tucker's making a big mistake.
So I'm just showing you this to let you know that Tucker's actually got the right message.
No.
The message is don't let them divide us.
No.
Don't let them hate us because of someone's religion.
No. Yes. No. We don't need to be in something with other religions. We don't need a government that's See, the reason why we're in this situation today is because we have a government that makes everybody, that has this philosophy that we all need to work together with all these different religions. We don't. We're not the ones killing the Muslims. The Jews are. We're not the ones attacking the Jews. Okay, we don't need to be involved in any of that. We need to get our own territories and raise our own people and have productive societies and build cities and have a nice time and tell everyone else that they can go do their little squabble somewhere else. It's not our business.
Let's come together around shared ideas.
No.
And this is what the people say.
No.
And they can't have that.
They can't have that.
No.
That's the most dangerous thing to the oligarchy and the establishment.
No, it's
is
not.
People, Americans, realizing that their neighbor is not their enemy, that their neighbor is suffering just like they are.
Well, some of the neighbors are the enemy, and some of them are just decent people. I mean, the Somalians that are ripping off people in Minnesota, they are the enemy of the people of Minnesota. So it's not that black and white, Jimmy. And the fact of the matter is, we got into this situation with your ideology that you're pushing right now. We don't need to be in alliance with Muslims. We don't need to be in alliance with Jews. We don't need any of this stuff. That's the whole point.
Suffering, and that they could come together because they share a common enemy, and that common enemy is the oligarchy that is running this country. And
that's who Tucker Carlson works for. Tucker Carlson works for J.D. Vance. Tucker Carlson works for Peter Thiel. Tucker Carlson's whole thing is to get us all back in a big coalition that's run by Peter Thiel and J.D. Vance, that work with Barry Weiss and CBS and Larry Ellison. You idiot. You're so stupid, dude.
And the Western world.
The Western world.
So I can't stand the fact that Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene are saying the things Democrats.
Okay, so here's the thing you have to understand. J.D. Vance and Peter Thiel and Barry Weiss and Larry Ellison want us all under their thing. So when they say the Western world, they say America, Canada, Australia, Europe, England. We all need to be back under this thing where we're allied with Muslims and we're working together and everybody works together and we're working with the Jews. And I know that the Jews and the Muslims and the Christians, but we all work together, and the Sodomites and Dave Rubin and the baby trafficking, and we just all work together with Alan Dershowitz and Barry Weiss and Larry Ellison, and he buys TikTok and he tells us what we can say, but we don't want to be divided. We got to stay together. That's the Jimmy Dore Show.
That should be saying, and are not.
Mm-hmm.
Democrats letting Tucker Carlson, of all people,
I'm gonna go warm up my coffee while you
stands
listen
against
to this.
Islamophobia more than them is insane, man. Unserious country. The fact that Democrats are being outflanked by those from their right, like Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene, is the definition of political malpractice. Watch it. Doesn't take much to embarrass the Democrats or the Republicans. Doesn't take much. That's why I've been able to do it so successfully for the last 10 years at this show. It's not hard. Ever since they cheated Bernie Sanders, which was half the Democratic Party, and then Bernie Sanders tucked his tail and extracted no concessions from the Democratic Party for his endorsement. Ever since that, I knew the fix was in, and that the Democrats were worthless. Worse, they're working against you. So watching the right stand up to Israel,
It's not the right.
refuse to
you
be
mean Tucker.
bullied by Zionists and the big accounts, go against their own politicians, even calling them out publicly, has been a humiliating watch for me this past year, honestly. I would have bet it would be the liberals. I feel like a clown. Hey, I couldn't stand Tucker for most of my life. Now he's one of the most honest people in the game.
These people are so dumb because they're agreeing to be in an alliance with Jews and Muslims, which is how they got into the situation in the first place. They're agreeing that we should be in an alliance with Jews and Muslims and Hindus and atheists and homosexuals who traffic babies like Dave Rubin. They're going back into agreement with the thing that got them into this in the first place. It's idiotic. The only way out of this mess is to dissolve it, to break up, to decouple. See, just like America is decoupling from China and Russia is decoupling from America, that's what we need to do. We need to decouple from the Jewish sodomite AI government in Washington, D.C. We need to decouple. And there's not going to be white people, Christian people, European people in some weird alliance with Somalians or Muslims or, see what I mean? We don't need that. There's no reason to need that. There's the only thing that's going to happen with that. See, that's the Kalergi Plan. Duh. The Kalergi Plan. Get us all race mixing, and then they can rule over us. And then they do get you to fight each other. But then the idiots come out like, I don't want to say idiot. Jimmy Dore's not an idiot, but then he comes out and he says, we all got to stick together. We don't need to stick together. That's the point. You don't have to stick together. We don't have to stick together. We do not have to stick together. We can see, having to stick together means not having the freedom to say no. See, now you can never say no. What do they do to you with the coronavirus stuff? We're all in this together. Remember that? We're all in this together. And you're like, what? And then some people are like, well, no, we can't say no. We're all in this together. Remember? It's the same thing. They're just doing it with race mixing. So that you can't separate. It doesn't work.
God is real and changes people for the better. It certainly seems like what's happened. Tucker's been on a real journey since he endorsed the Iraq war, and he's constantly apologized for that.
Oh, and he constantly says that he doesn't hate Jews and that he's not an anti-Semite, and that he doesn't hate Israel, and he really supports Israel, and he doesn't hate Muslims, and he works with Muslims. And what is it? Where does that lead? I don't hate Jews. I mean, I shouldn't say I hate Jews. There's certain Jews I do hate, but the average Jewish person is like the average Muslim person or the average Christian person. They're just people. Some of them are smart, some of them are dumb, some of them are good, some of them are ethical, some of them are criminals. That stuff that's not the point. The point is, if you're going to form a government, just like Moses did, he said, we are a people. These are our laws. This is what we're all going to do. We're going to form a government. And then in the story of the Israelites, they formed a government, and then they took a territory. And so, I mean, that's called a government. It's exclusive. You have to be able to say no. You have to say, I want to be part of this. I don't want to be part of this. I'm going to fight for this. I'm not going to fight for this. So you have to have that freedom, that will to say yes or no. And that gets taken away by people that say, we all have to stick together. We can't separate. You can't divide us.
And it seems like he's constantly trying to make up for that. And I think he's doing a good job.
I think he's part of a plan.
You know, I think also when I've watched Tucker, he talks about, like, I might have said something in the past and I may have believed it, but as the facts reveal themselves, I'm open to changing my opinion based on the facts. And one of the things I remember when you were on his show, Jimmy, and you talked about Julian Assange, and you were able to change his mind about Julian Assange.
He credited me with changing his mind. I'll take it. So here's another tweet under this video. It says, you're not wrong. I was flabbergasted when I saw this clip. So much so that I had to retweet it and actually thank the ghoulish MFer for calling it out. Tucker's a hate monger. I can't stand him. I've hated him since the Crossfire days in the aughts.
So when he's correct, he's correct.
Well, he's also had a journey.
I just commented, or I'm about to. We don't need an alliance with Jews and Muslims and Hindus. This is the Palantir program of Kalergi prison system. Just throwing some words out there that hopefully people will be affected by. Wake them up, because we do not want to go back into this thing, dude. We do not want to go back in this thing. We want to get out of this thing. We want to get out of this thing, not into this thing, out.
Where he's changed as a person since you mean the last 25 years? Has he changed? Nationalist and a socialist. Labels had never had meanings. It's pro-humanity versus anti-humanity. Liberals and Democrats abandon their morals and thus support anything for the party. The Republicans tried to get their side to do the same.
Okay, so let me explain something to you. The Republicans are run by a private group. The Democrats are run by a private group. The police department is run by a private group called a 501c3 union. The schools are run by private groups called 501c3 unions. These are all private groups with private interests. So you have an entire government system where you have all these private groups. Okay. And this failed because America sucks. So I'm saying that we're not going back to that. That's a horrible. That's why America has turned into a degenerate, disgusting, perverted, low IQ, ugly. There's nothing good about it. The Egyptian government had a philosophy, and the political leaders of Egypt were bound, like the role of the pharaoh in Egypt. His job was to use the military and implement laws that perpetuated the society. That was the goal. Now they failed because they're gone. The people that had that are gone. And the only thing that's left are gigantic stone pyramids and structures and mummies that were designed to live forever. See, they had this goal of eternity. The goal of Egypt was eternity. And so they built structures that were designed to last forever, made out of stone. And the role of the role of the king, the role of the priests, was to maintain a certain order that was designed to last forever. Now it didn't, but it wasn't a bunch of private groups with a bunch of private interests. It was a set of ideas that was based on the heavens and based on this philosophy that God's word is light. And because the story in the heavens lasts forever, then this was going to be the story of the people. Okay, see, in Egypt now, like for instance, if you read, if you're like, oh, I wish I knew what like some people want to go, I wonder what the Egyptians believed in. What do the Egyptians believed in? What was their religion? How do we find out what it was? Well, they believed a lot of things. And those things kind of changed over time with the different names of the different gods and all this kind of stuff. But if you actually read what it's all about, it's really the primary thing. It's about one thing. It's about the war between light and dark playing out on the moon for eternity. And see how that story never changes. So you have a story in the heavens that never changes. And that's why you have Horus fighting Set on the moon, and it's all being maintained by Thoth. And so these are the different gods, right? And it's all playing out on the moon. It just goes on and on and on forever, and it never changes. And Egypt was going to mirror this. That was going to be their story, and this is going to be their civilization. And these are going to be and people are born and die and born and die and born and grow up and work and serve the Egyptian system and then die and then new life for eternity. That was the idea. Okay. If you don't have a civilization that at least attempts to do this, then it's just going to be dust in the wind. It's just going to be a leaf blowing in the wind. Today we're doing this. Today we're doing that. Now, what is the system that Palantir, J.D. Vance, Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones want to set up? They want to set up a prison system run by an AI supercomputer that it's the thing that lives forever and maintains everything on the earth towards a certain end, which has to do with exterminating the population and maintaining a certain number of people on the earth. And so this is all going to be run by drones, supercomputers, homosexuals, and Jewish mafia. That's the Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson program for the earth. Which one do you want?
But now there are splinters.
Do you want the story in the heavens, and that's our philosophy, or do you want Dave Rubin baby buying out of the womb? Let me explain something to you. Let's say you're reincarnated, okay, and you're in your mother's womb, and you come out of your mother's womb, and you want to go home with mommy. You want to go home with mommy. You're covered in her blood. You want your mommy. You want to be held by your mommy. But instead, it's some homosexual pervert who has a lot of money because he's well connected to these groups in Washington, D.C. And he just bought you. He paid your mommy. He paid your mommy. You're going home with him and his homosexual partner. They're gonna butt fuck each other while you're in the room. That's your future. That's your future, Mr. I Love America. That's your future, Mr. USA, USA. That's your fucking future, you piece of shit. That's your future. That's why I'm trying to warn you. That's what's happening now. Those people are in power now, and no one's stopping them. They're in power now. Alex Jones works for them. Tucker Carlson works for them. That's what's happening.
Tucker, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Massey, Rand Paul, etc. Both sides need principles over party, or we are doomed. Well said. And I think that the thing that scares the elites most is not that there's a new party forming, because parties can be corrupted and co-opted.
Okay, I've had enough. Thanks for watching.